How do you guys perceive generative models helping, maybe on your concierge models or helping your analysts, or what are you guys thinking of in that space, in the generative AI or LLM space, or even small language model space, to do more with what you guys are doing?
So Adam and I are actually both talking about this at Black Hat right now, but we're attacking it from two different angles. I'm talking about how it's beneficial, and Adam's talking about how it's
scary.
That's scary, yeah.
I gave that talk last week, so I can relate.
So I'll say from the standpoint, and he can kind of talk about what we're going to watch out for, but from the standpoint of how we're going to help it with concierges, first and foremost, now and in the future, we always are following the mission that AI is a tool to empower our people. It is not leading our people. The moment you put AI in front of the individuals, you're going to fail. It doesn't work that way. It has to be people over AI. So the AI is, how can it benefit, especially large language models, generative AI? Well, okay, it can add additional context, right? Instead of just getting the same alerts over and over, and then the individual has to go, okay, now how do I then piece this together using, what I've learned before? It's taking information that's learned about the customer environment or the other telemetry and context, and then adding some more information to it, putting it in real natural language so the analyst can read it and go, oh, okay, cool, I know what's going on here. Now I have to decide what's going on. But they're not dependent upon that, because if the large language model or whatever is incorrect, the human still has the experience to go, that's crap, that's wrong. Let me go back and actually fix it now, and retrain the model if necessary. And then we can also say, you know what, okay, we're putting a lot of stress on our analysts to go through, identify the threats, respond to the threats, and then type up the information to then send to the customer. Well, what if we can have the humans do that? What if we can have them respond to the threat, identify the threat, and then when it comes to actually sending the information to the customer, that can be done through AI in some ways, right? So you have a bit of a starting point of, hey, here's what happened, here's what you need to know. It's already in the alert, or in the ticket or whatever, and that gets shot to the customer. Good thing also is that we don't rely solely upon email and alerts. We also pick up the phone and call the customer. You can't have AI do that, but it's just it's reducing the time. It's reducing the time to value, which is helping us. But there's going to be a point where I think there's only so much you can add before it starts to distract. Because right now, let me throw a number at you. The average time to detect a threat or a breach in an environment is about 206 days. We've looked at about a year's worth of our results, and we got it down to 23 minutes. We can detect a breach in a customer environment in 23 minutes. We used to say under 30 minutes. Like, I'm old. To me, if I hear under 30 minutes, I think pizza.
Or it was free.
Yeah, exactly. Under 30 minutes or it's free. And I always tell customers now, I'm like, we can detect a breach faster than you can get a pizza to your house now. And that's super impressive. And we're doing that without massive amounts of AI. We use AI, but we use it strategically and we use it correctly. And I think that's the difference, is we don't want to just overload our analysts and our platform with AI just for the sake of doing it. We want to be very strategic in the way we use it, and we use it in a way that's only going to benefit our environment.
Makes sense.
But we also want to detect when bad guys are using it.
Yeah, and I mean, you've been in the industry a long time. Like, AI's been around a lot. There's lots of different kinds. Generative AI is one type. LLM's one type. And there's other kinds we've used, to help with detection and response.
Predictive analytics.
Yeah, all those kind of analytics to go through large data sets, all of this, which to me, in a lot of ways, much more interesting to leverage at the problem of MDR or even managed risk, right? But these new generative AI models can help in some other things. It also helps to understand what they're really doing, which maybe the layperson doesn't, and how it's just predictive, and it's just creating something out of everything it knows, and it's not really creating things that are...
Autocorrect on steroids.
Yeah, exactly. And if you really understand that, then you understand its limitations and what it is good at doing. Like things like maybe speeding up some interactions with the client, speeding up collecting information and putting it in a cogent explanation. Those are the kinds of things this generative AI that's come out can help us. But it is nice that this has now opened up sort of the common person's, mind and imagination to what AI can do. And, just releasing it into the world as OpenAI did with ChatGPT really did help us then be able to say, and hey, there's a threat here. Not just not just to, your employees using it maybe in ways you didn't intend, and now, like some companies have said, now some of their intellectual property is
sitting in OpenAI.
Yeah, but also, like, if we're thinking about how we can use this as defenders,
Right.
then the offenders are quickly trying to figure out how they can use this.
Yeah, developing their models and everything.
Yeah, and again, we've had, like, some of the AI been leveraged against us. We've had polymorphic malware for a long time
Neural networks have been around for a while. Yeah.
where it learned, but how are they going to use generative AI? Well, there's lots of ways, but some of the most scary to me maybe aren't the most common attacks. I think of things like misinformation.
Yeah.
I think of deep fakes. I think of images, things that were hard to fake in the past that are now easy, and all that can be used. But it's only, again, a tool to commit the same kinds of attacks, social engineering attacks we referred to earlier, which is one of the scariest things. We try to train our humans to resist it. Well, now it's just getting supercharged.
Yeah.
And so those are the kinds of things I think of when we're specifically talking about generative AI. I think of social engineering attacks. I think of misinformation. I feel like flooding the system with garbage information. All of that is going to make it more difficult for security teams to defend against. But I guess I more mean the regular employees from defending against that, right?
Yeah.
So now you have more effective social engineering campaigns, everything from phishing to just disinformation and all of that. So my mind goes a lot of places with it. But I'm curious you said you gave a talk on that. What are some of your thoughts on what it's going to do?
The biggest thing that I demoed in one of those talks, the one I did last week, was it wasn't OpenAI, but I won't actually won't vendor name the LLM we used. But it was exactly what you're talking about. I kind of went and asked it, give me the top procurement people from this company.
Okay.
And then it spit back the 3 people. And I said, okay, show me on LinkedIn where they're at. Okay, they do work there. All right, cool. I'm going to pick this one. Tell me all about this person.
Yeah.
And it disturbingly told me that person had 2 daughters, was a fan of music hiking, lived in Oregon. It was this whole story. And I was like, whoa, this is crazy. So then I said, write me an email that this person would open. And it wrote this amazing email about Spotify. And it was from their employer.
Wow.
And it was like, as an employee of X organization, we have partnered with Spotify to give you access to free concert tickets. And they wrote this thing. And then it even gave me pointers like, you might want to add this, this, and this here.
Okay.
And I'm just thinking, oh my, 5 minutes later, I have a full-on phishing attack. Then we said, okay, well, this part's pretty simple. Write me code that scrapes their corporate website. And then SCP that code here. Do the scrape every 5 minutes. Replicate it here. Put a redirect JavaScript on this page just to see if you ever do it. And so just created all this code. And then we said, write it in, we went crazy, write it in VB, did it in VB, write it in Java, did it in Java. So it was just fascinating to watch how fast it's been. Now, code in AI is quite frankly junk.
Yeah.
However, it was functional enough to work. And I don't think attackers are worried about code elegance, quite frankly.
Yeah.
And so that to me was incredibly disturbing to see how fast I could generate insanely high fidelity text, right? It read beautifully. And then being able to, in that instance, harvest, that model uses just internet data, right?
Yeah.
And so being able to just harvest that amount of information on somebody within lightning fast speed. And then you talk about deep fakes, right? If I'm now harvesting the information from an executive who's usually they're known on call if a publicly traded company, I can get the voice from earnings calls, whatever. I can then start to really piece together interesting attack profiles for. So we were going through those models, but it was fascinating to, like you alluded to, when you truly look at generative AI and LLMs or SLMs and how they work, it's not that mind-blowing when you see what it is, but what you can do with the technology as far as an attack scenario was also fascinating, because we also wrote a piece that we kind of borrowed from a researcher to change our functions out in Python every time VirusTotal detected it, and just replace it, right? Give me a new version of this, but just do an API call. Give me rewrite this piece, rewrite this piece, rewrite this piece, and so I could automate that. That's also scary. It's like, okay, polymorphic is one thing, but constantly having something pull brand new functions. There's a limit to the amount of functions, but that was also eye-opening, where it's like, okay, I can actually just replace pieces of code completely here.
So how accurate was the actual bio it built on that individual?
It was 100%.
It was 100% accurate.
Yeah, yeah.
That's interesting.
Went to their. I think they scraped it from Facebook because I went to
Okay.
Facebook and their page was pretty open.
So this must be a person that's active on social media.
Yeah, social
Okay.
media and a big executive in purchasing,
Okay.
right? So 2 kids on Facebook, pictures of them at concerts.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, their Facebook page is probably a little too open, but it was disturbingly accurate. And that was one of the things we were, okay, let's pick this person, let's go see how about, because part of the talk was trash in, trash out, right?
Yes.
AI isn't always trust. You can't trust it.
There's a concept here, this is a mouthful, but the fallacy that AI is infallible, right? And the concept, there's a subset of people that believe that everything that comes out of AI, or especially these large language models and these newer models, is just accurate.
Yeah.
And that's absolutely incorrect. That's why I asked that. It's really unique that you got something that was so perfect, because we've had individuals, our VP of strategy ran his, I just said, tell me about, himself, and he got junk back out.
Oh yeah,
Because-
OpenAI said I was a banker and I went to Harvard, and I was like, whoa, where's my Harvard degree? This is amazing, right?
It's scraping publicly available information. If it's
Yeah.
outdated, or if it's, multiple people with the same name or whatever, then you're going to get junk back out, and you can kind of tell that way. So
I will say the model we're using, and I won't name them, is in a super early preview, and they did say the data in here is we scrape the whole internet because we have access to the whole internet, and so you may get, because I talked to a friend that works there, and they're like, we just scrape everything. So you're probably getting Facebook data, you're getting everything we can get. And so it was remarkably insanely accurate, and so yeah, we went through and verified it. That's what really made it kind of weird, because ChatGPT, for example, was like I'm from a banker and Harvard graduate, and I was like, wow, where's my paycheck for being a banker from Harvard? Right? How do I get this profile? Right? Completely inaccurate for me. But so yeah, I do see the same thing, and that's one of the things we were talking about with last week in that talk with a bunch of clients was exactly that. You don't know what the truth factor of what's coming out of that model to you, and so to me it's akin to being like a young kid and the grocery store aisle and seeing the National Enquirer, and 5-year-old me is like, ooh, they're aliens. This is so rad. And then your parents being like, that is completely fabricated and not true.
Weekly World News, you tell me Bat Boy's not real?
Right, exactly.
So what is really interesting to me here is when you have a technology like this that's released, where all those things you described are things that we know how to do.
Right.
They're possible to do. They just take a lot of time.
They do.
And in the past, crime syndicates, others have thrown people at the problem, right? Let's create a click farm, we'll hire a bunch of people cheaply to work on these problems, their problems, right? Their techniques to create these attacks. Well, these kinds of tools allow you to do this at scale much, much more efficiently.
Yes.
And we've seen this before. One of the things that was a sea change in attacks was cryptocurrency.
Right.
And of course, I was in law enforcement at the time, and all I saw in cryptocurrency is like, oh no, it's like money laundering as a service, right? It's really easy. This quasi-anonymous, decentralized system
100%.
is just going to make it a lot easier and sure enough, what happened is ransomware goes through the roof, and not only that, but some unanticipated things like crimes against individuals, because suddenly you didn't have to have a series of bank accounts and money mules that could move this money. And so if you're going to set all that up, that whole chain, you're going to focus that on your highest value targets, because you've either socially engineered people or you're paying people to help you move money from account to account to be able to hide it and get it transferred as quick. Well, now if you have cryptocurrency, you don't need any of that.
Right.
You can just get it directly from the individual. So attacks on individuals increased. So what something like these AI tools that we've just released on the world is going to do is going to make people be able to do what you're talking about much more easily. So it's going to happen at scale. And those are the kind of attacks. Now, it's not the sophisticated, fancy stuff that maybe some people want to talk about who are really wonky into the technology, which is fun too.
Yeah.
But just thinking about how you can take low-level attacks and scale them, and how this does that, is what I think is potentially terrifying.
Next generation of social engineering.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say hypothetical to the two of you, right? So the concept of sci-fi of yesterday is realistic today, right? So if we're saying, okay, well, we have to verify before a transaction occurs, we have to verify from the person, whatever. We have to get them to say it's accurate, whatever. Are we at the point, or will we soon be at the point where they can real time face swap with that individual and make it look like that person is actually speaking, or their voice is, you know, modifying their voice to where it actually sounds like them from things you can harvest off the internet. I've seen it done before, right? You play around Snapchat and swap your face. It doesn't look perfect, but are we almost at that point where we're going to be able to social engineer people that way by, you know, making it look like your boss is actually asking for the password, or they're actually verifying, you know, through voice? You know, my bank verifies me through my voice just calling them.
Yeah.
Are they going to be able to do that as well? Like, I think we're almost there.
Yeah, I think the one limiting factor on that is the amount of data we need to be able to do it, right? And we don't all, we speak a lot, so we're in trouble, right?
Yeah.
But like, my dad doesn't speak a lot, right? So, or my sister or whoever. And so for them, it's probably more of a limited factor, but I agree. It was something I was thinking about when I saw that face swap app. I was specifically on, what's it, Snapchat or whatever it was. I was like, oh, that's creepy.
Yeah.
Because it does get pretty good.
Yeah.
And so my brother was messing with it, and I was like, that's really where my mind went, because I was like, oh, it's limited in data set, and it's not that great. And now I'm like, well, we are there. It's pretty close to being. I'm waiting to see like when the first real vector of that hits and how it comes out, because I think it's coming, like you're talking about. I think someone's working on it. Yeah, I think we're there.
Yeah, and we're barely getting to the point where we have, you know, financial departments have the protocols in place to resist even the business email compromise type attacks, where, you know, where someone at the last minute changes the routing, or you know, someone says, I'm the CEO and I'm on vacation and you need to do this. We're barely getting to the point where companies are used to protecting against that, and now we have the next level of it.
Yep.
But that's why security is always going to have to just stay one step ahead. And people ask me a lot, they're like, well, what do you do for that? And I'm like, well, you can come up with different ways, like rotating code words or something like that. And then like, but then someone could defeat that. Yeah, we're always going to have to continue to come up with protocols and ways around these attacks. And there are people who have deep faked phone calls, emergency phone calls from kids. Hey, you need me to transfer me this money. These things are happening now, and they're only going to get worse with, you know, visual deep fakes and things like that. So we're going to have to come up with processes that defeat those attacks or resist to them. And then there'll be this huge catch up, and then as people start to catch up and roll those out, there'll be more. But that's why you know, you have partners, you have security teams that come up with these things, and then you have to educate everybody through the security awareness. So, yeah, I'm terrified of it. Yeah, it's coming. but we will find a way through it and use these tools to help us. You know, we'll use AI to detect AI deepfakes and things like that.
Absolutely.
So
fight AI with AI. Just make sure you put people in front of it.
Yeah, I think that's the model, right? It's a fascinating technology, but yeah, incredibly scary for what. And we know what we can do with it, but it's like you said, it's so open to the world now. And like my sister, she works in corrections as a parole officer, I think. ChatGPT is just like a Google search for her, right? So it's like they just use it as, you know, a normal user uses it as what it is, a tool, without thinking of any other implications of what I put into it, what I feed into these models, what I share, what my social media account now shares with maybe Meta uses, I think, Llama on their models. What are they doing with it? And we always question Facebook with what they do with their data, but now it's an even bigger question of like, you have all my images from Instagram and now all my family history, if I linked my family in there, and now really what are you doing with the data in an LLM type model? What can get exploited? I start to go back and think, wow, what social media accounts did I have, right? And
your MySpace?
MySpace.
We're going back pretty far for that.
I'll admit that one. It was cool to have the music playing.
It starts looking at your top 5 or whatever. Yeah.
You're like, this guy's so emo.
But yeah, it goes through, right? And your sister, and maybe she's going, you know what? Write me a sick excuse to my boss, whose name is this, you know, and I work here.
Yeah.
Well, you're going to get a sick note back out that's going to make or an excuse that makes sense, but you just fed the beast all that information.
Yes.
And then now it has it, and who's going to use it against you?
Yeah, because I can, as an attacker, I could query that database the LLM and Fable database. I'm going to get smacked by some AI guy for that. It's not a database. It's not a database. We know this, but I can send queries in, right, and get that data out of it.
Absolutely.
And I think that's, when I talked to a bunch of people last week, that was the most, I think, eye-opening thing for a lot of CISOs last week was didn't realize that what you put into like OpenAI was so public, you know. And like, what you put in there, they give you a big warning on that one specifically because it's the most popular one, right? Everyone goes there. do not put anything private in here. But guaranteed people do it, right? Rewrite my resume for me. All
Yeah,
right,
great.
Let me give you all my resume data. So yeah, it's going to be
Copy, paste.
yeah,
Yep.
it's going to be super fascinating to see. But I think that's what makes our job so cool is, you know, it's frustrating. It's almost like I was talking to my dentist. It's like when you're a dentist, he said, and I see people every 6 months, and I'm like, you're still not flossing. You're still not flossing. It's the simplest thing. You're not flossing. In security, we do the same thing. We're like, you're still using that terrible password. You're still not patching. We're like dentists in that way, but then I don't think there's that much innovation in dentistry yet. So we're accelerating at light speed. Now we have, you're still not flossing, but oh my gosh, look at all this stuff that's coming. So we still have this issue, and we have all these other big boilerplate issues that are coming. And so it's an interesting balance of, you know, basic security hygiene versus like how are you now dealing with, like you said, the ever evolving iteration of how are we going to tackle this net new security threat.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to bring up is that, you know, we as humans are pretty terrible at risk assessment, right?
Completely.
We think the dangerous things are not driving our car, it's flying in a plane, but of course driving a car is much more dangerous.
Way more dangerous.
And it's the biggest problems in cybersecurity are still, you know, credential management. It's still patching and vuln management. It's still the bread and butter, simple hygiene stuff. We're focused on the shiny object of AI right now, and there are these scary things, but it's still the same problems we got to solve. We do need to focus on those. We should be aware of this, and as that threat comes in and moves into this environment, I guarantee it's going to be leveraged on stealing credentials and exploiting vulnerabilities and not unpatched systems, right? Because that is the most successful way for people to exploit their targets.
Introducing new technology that creates a false sense of security. So they go, you know what, I couldn't not get people to do good quality passwords. So I introduced multi-factor authentication. And then what happens is your phone goes off, somebody picks it up, they hit OK, and they put the phone back down. Bypass multi-factor authentication. There was a well-known breach just occurred that was MFA bombing, right? And that's just going to continue to happen as well because basic hygiene and not teaching people. That's why we introduced managed security awareness. But, right?
Nice plug.
Yes. But, right, this is teaching people, if you're going to accept that MFA push, make sure you just logged in. Pay attention to what you're doing. Don't just randomly hit it on your phone and put your phone back down. Like, again, basic hygiene, as Adam just said, basic stuff.
It still defends against so many attacks, even those leveraged with AI. If you have the basics down, it's like the basics in any sport. You know, you get those basics, you can build a game on those fundamentals. It's the same with cyber hygiene. You've got to build these basics. And so, yes, there is AI and there's those scary things. You still got to make sure you're doing your bread and butter security operations, your vuln management, your compliance. All of those things are still the most important thing to focus on. And then think about the AI and start worrying about that when we have the basics. But it also protects against that. That's the other thing.
Yeah.
It really does.
It does.
If you are doing those really important but simple and things that nobody wants to do, right? Everybody wants the magic silver
Everyone's
bullet.
the rock star side, man.
Yeah, they do. They want the special thing that's exciting right now. And unfortunately, or fortunately, if you do the bread and butter stuff, the basic hygiene, you're going to be protected against most of attacks. And you won't be the low-hanging fruit, certainly.
Right.
You'll be the guy running faster than the other guy running away from the bear. Right?
Agreed. Yeah, I agreed.
So.
I always tell, you know, when I'm talking to say the clients or whoever about this, I'm always like, listen, if a nation state actor's after you, we're in trouble because they're not going to send you a phishing email generally. It's going to be a SolarWinds type event, right? However, just doing which to me is that advanced type of attack with AI. Most of you are going to be in this bucket like we're talking about, right? Hey, you're not doing your basic hygiene, you're getting hit with basic credential issues, stuffing, whatever. So just focus here first, like you're saying, I agree 100%. Get this stuff in order, and this stuff will come, but it's not, it looks cooler, but it's not nearly as important as the threat, the risk side over here, right? I think that's an important message that a lot of people need to keep rehearing because they shift and go, oh my gosh, AI, right, the newest shiny thing, whatever it is. And realistically, it's like, oh, you have 65 unpatched Windows NT4 boxes sitting out there underneath the desk somewhere, right? And those are a much bigger threat because as someone who used to do kind of the darker side of attacks, that would be where I would go really quick. Because I always told people, like, when I wrote code, I was lazy. How fast can I get the exploit to work the way I wanted it to work? And what's the easiest way? And I'm not going to burn my O day on you unless you're really worth it, because I could sell it back in a vulnerability, program and make a lot more money than I burned you or whatever. And so attackers think the same way. It's like, I'm only going to save my crown jewel O day for like that nation state event, and I'm going to find the easiest, softest, fastest way to infrastructure, which is usually a person through credentials or some sort of low-level non-patch system. So the risk, you're right, is absolutely higher on this side for that type of attack than it is on this side. But this side seems so much cooler.
Yes.
And it's the Rockstar side that we deal with, right?
Well, it's the new thing, and it's fun.
It is. It's
fun
always
to
fun.
think about, and
Absolutely.
and it's it's exciting. But man, that basic stuff is what's really important, and that's obviously what you should be focusing most of your time on.
Yeah.
Is really educating your employees on that stuff, actually patching your systems, getting people to use good passwords and MFA and all those good things. So.
I think that brings it back kind of full circle where we started in the conversation, which was, if someone was wondering why they would use like an Arctic Wolf or something, this would be to me, the biggest reason is I need to get my house in order because I need to have all this stuff done because this stuff is coming and I need to have that personalized feeling of like, I can get all this stuff done and I could probably talk to the threat research team or my personal concierge team and get insight into how this will impact my environment because you know it.
Yeah.
That to me is super cool and compelling, right? But I think more people need to think about that where it's like, okay, how do I get my house cleaner, right? And some organizations are amazing at this stuff and some are not. Majority are not, right? We have some amazing clients who are just destroying posture. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
But that's a rare gem, right? That's a unicorn. So most of them need to focus here, and I think that's where you guys probably shine, is helping get that lifted and get that consistency in operation, get that just confidence built, and being able to then tackle the shiny baubles as they come in and say, at least I personally would I think it's cool to be able to say, hey, what do you guys think about this? Or call you and say, hey, I'm seeing this, are you seeing this? Right? And it's just, I think this is this kind of risk, what do you think? Right? And so being able to have that kind of feedback, I think for a client is to me priceless.
Pulling in a few things from like what Adam said, right? Fundamentals are important, but they're boring. Nobody wants to do them.
They're boring, yeah.
You know what? We'll do them. And we don't have egos about it. We'll do them 24/7, 365.
It's another shirt. We do boring.
We do boring very well.
We do boring very well.
Yep.
Because it delivers value.
Yes.
And that's what we're delivering. And that's what makes us exciting. It seems boring, but we know the boring is what's valuable.
Yes.
It
So
is
that's
what's
why
valuable.
we'll do it. Yeah.
And what clients love about that too is that, we'll cover all those fundamentals. We'll cover the stuff that you consider boring and allows you to go do the cool fun rockstar stuff, right?
Yeah.
You want to do the deep threat hunting in your environment. You want to do, deep malware analysis. You want to pen test your environment, whatever it is you want to do. Guess what? Now you have the free time to do it. And you can absolutely do that. You don't want to train your people and smack their hands and say, stop clicking those links. Guess what? We'll send them the videos doing that. Like, we don't mind doing that. And then, that is the important part. And the other is right there in that name as well, manage detection and response. Prevention is great. Prevention is excellent. We would all love to prevent everything. You're not going to prevent everything. And if you go all in on prevention and you don't have a good detection response plan, you're in major trouble when prevention fails. So that's why we're there as well, to detect it when it occurs, to respond to it as quickly as possible, and then to recover from it, and then plan to make sure it doesn't happen again. That's really the foundation.
Yeah, I agree with that. I always say you can't prevent what you can't detect.
Absolutely.
So if you're not detecting, you're not preventing anyways.
Yep.
Right? And so, yeah.
Absolutely.
It's fun. Well, any other closing thoughts? I know I've eaten up a bunch of your time today. I appreciate you guys sitting down and chatting with me. It's always fun. Anything else exciting? I know you're both speaking.
Yes.
Yep, we're speaking here and talking about AI because it's interesting. But again, if there's a message I can get out, it's just to everybody in an organization. It is those basics that you got to do, and you should consider when you're online, especially when you're in things like your email box. You're not safe. Like, you need to realize the risk that you're running doing things during the day, and people don't realize things like driving, going through your inbox are the more dangerous things you do during the day, be it cyber or real world risk. And so I'm very, very passionate about security awareness training, and so I just really like to get that out to everybody. It's fun to think about these AI risks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's fun to think about the latest tool, but man, get those basics down and let a partner like Arctic Wolf help you with it, and you'll be way better off.
Yeah, help drive out that complacency. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'll just say, if you want to learn more, visit our website, arcticwolf.com. And then if you do have any questions, feel free to reach out. Anyone in the company is more than happy to talk to you. One of the two of us, personally, I prefer you reach out to me more because Adam is keeping our environment safe. I know Adam will absolutely respond, but if you do have any questions, please feel free to reach out. More than happy to answer anything you want to know.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you guys taking the time. Thanks so much.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Yeah.